This is Duke University.
Looks like we have everyone. Kennedy, do you want to go ahead and kick us off, and then we can launch the poll to see who is actually in the audience?
Yeah, sure. So hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have an exciting panel in front of us. It's about industries surrounding non-clinical healthcare and life science roles. And we have some amazing alumni with us. We're planning to have a 45-minute session of me asking questions and then save a 15-minute Q&A for the audience at the end. I should probably introduce myself first. I'm Kennedy. I'm a sophomore and a career ambassador at Duke. I'm studying economics with a concentration in finance and a minor in soc. And I'm planning on going into investment banking and possibly healthcare investment banking. So next we should probably get a sense of the audience and kind of figure out who else is here with us. So I'm just gonna launch a poll really quickly. It looks like we have a lot of undergraduate students, but we do have a healthy mix of graduate students and postdoc and other faculty and staff. So with that being said, I think we can continue on and introduce our alumni for today. I'll save myself introducing them because the first question kind of leads us into that. So we can get into the questions. So the first question is, please tell us about yourself and your career background, including your current role and organization, as well as your degree at Duke. We can start with Tanaya Amar.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Tanaya, and currently I am working as a data analyst at CVS Health, and I work in their pharmacy personalization, innovation, and strategy team. And our team is all about trying to enhance patient experience at our pharmacies by targeting them with the right message at the right time via the right channel. And we have huge databases available at CVS Health that we make use of as analysts to be able to do that. And of course, this isn't my first job. I have held a job before back in my home country of India, where I worked for 2 years for Accenture as an analyst. And for those 2 years, I worked for eBay as a digital marketing campaign management analyst, and that was my first experience into the world of analysts. And then while I was there, I had the desire to pursue a master's, and then I did my research, and I found out the Master of Engineering Management program at Duke, and I applied, and I got accepted, and I flew here in August 2017 for the program, and I graduated in August 2018. And after my graduation was when I got the job at CVS Health. So that's how my career has been so far. And yeah, happy to answer any questions about that journey.
That sounds amazing. Okay, we can move to Matt Epland.
Hi, I'm Matt Epland. I am a former PhD student at Duke. I graduated from the physics department doing high energy physics in 2019. And now I am a data scientist in New York at Komodo Health. We are a software as a service data company. We have a very large privileged data set from many different insurers across the United States. And we use that data to help primarily life sciences pharmaceutical companies target their drugs to different providers and hospital networks. Although I don't work in that division, I work in the healthcare solutions division. So we work with all non-life sciences customers, so payers, consultancy firms, nonprofits, patient advocacy organizations. And so we're doing more bespoke work there. And yeah, I'm really enjoying the work so far. I'm using some of my physics background and the analytical components, and spending a lot. This is my first job outside of school, I suppose. And yeah, we're building interesting products and interesting analytic projects along the way.
Great. Tammeka Evans.
Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. My name is Tammeka Evans, and I graduated from Duke Trinity College in 2003 with the BA in the Program 2 major. And my program was specifically titled The Social Causation of Disease, which really reflected my early passion to research and address health disparities in medicine and health policy. So I would say Duke was one of the reasons why I was really excited to be able to kind of curate my own major. So I cannot speak highly enough of it to the undergraduates as well. But you could say I was a blend of probably pre-law and pre-med. I spent a lot of time in the growth sciences building, but a lot of time in the Stanford Policy Institute too. And I knew kind of immediately after college, I wanted to kind of explore a little bit my hybrid interests. And so I started working for a research company here in North Carolina, Research Triangle Park, RTI International, where I was there for almost 15 years. And I did my graduate degree right down the road at NC State in medical physiology. And at the time, I was doing a lot of work, contract work for the Centers for Disease Control and for the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality and Centers for Medicaid and Medicare, CMS. So as you can see, there was a blend of public health and policy. And with that, I ended up getting a medical physiology degree because I was doing so much clinical, like systematic evidence reviews and a lot of work and working with a lot of physicians. So I definitely want to kind of have that background and base knowledge, which has served me very well. As I am now the Director of Global Public Health and Innovation at GlaxoSmithKline, their subsidiary ViiV Healthcare, which is the HIV focused area of the company. And I am currently in my first year as a doctoral student with a doctorate in health science at Nova Southeastern University in Florida with their executive program. So in its executive leadership, because I have thoroughly enjoyed this kind of path that started at Duke with my program too. So I'm happy to be able to speak with you all, and I feel like my journey really has reflected the path less beaten as an undergrad, and I've just been very fulfilled. So thank you for having me this afternoon.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. The next alumni is Carolyn Nohejl. Sorry if I mispronounced your last name.
No, you're great. It's Nohejl. So I'm Carolyn Nohejl, and thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to talk with you all today. So in terms of background, I graduated from undergrad at UCSD with biochemistry. I worked at a medical device company in quality, and I was still trying to figure out, what is it that I want to do for my career? And it was there that I became more interested in the technology side. So I came to Duke for my master's in biomedical engineering in 2008. And I was on a mission, like I wanted to start a company. And I knew like down the line, I'd probably want to be on the business side. And it was actually while I was at Duke that I realized there was an opportunity to do a joint degree. And I pitched it to the school and said, hey, I'm doing my master's in biomedical engineering. What if I could do a joint degree with the MBA? And we were able to work out kind of a joint degree for me when I was there, which was fantastic. Worked on a startup developing a device to treat epilepsy. We ended up winning the Duke Startup Challenge when we were there, which was a lot of fun. But I realized at that time I wasn't ready to start a company. I wanted to better understand the clinical and regulatory landscape before doing that. So I left. I worked in product management at Boston Scientific, at Stryker. These are big medical device companies. I have driven products concept through launch, commercialized in global markets at these companies, and then got picked up by Verily Life Sciences. So this is Google's spin out in life sciences. I joined pretty early, 4 months after when we spun out of Google, and they brought me in as an alliance manager, or sometimes called a partnerships manager, because a lot of their business is done in partnership. And I managed partnerships. I helped build up a joint venture called Galvani in neuromodulation, and ended up leading the team there, and then took on a general management role leading one of our disease platforms. And so I had a wonderful run at Verily, definitely learned a lot about digital health on the business side and worked with our engineering teams. And in July, I decided to leave and take some time off. So I'm actually between roles right now, and ready to tap back into that entrepreneurial side that I had engaged when I was at Duke once again.
That's great. And then our last alumni to introduce themselves is Vivek Upadhyay.
It's okay on the last name. I don't think I've had anyone get that right. Hey everyone, my name is Vivek Upadhyay. I am a former Duke undergrad. I graduated from Trinity in 2010. My major at the time was in biology, and then I also got a minor in chemistry, and I did the ethics certificate. I think I was the first class actually to do it, which was really fun. And currently I'm finishing a joint fellowship. So I'm a clinical fellow in hematology and oncology at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute here in Boston. And then I also did a joint fellowship in medical informatics done through an organization called Partners Healthcare, which is the organization that manages Mass General Hospital and Brigham and Women's Hospital. And currently I'm in really finishing up. You can kind of think of it as like second semester senior year, and I'm actually about to take a role at a therapeutics company based here in Cambridge. But like many of you, I really could not have envisioned the path that I'm on now, and certainly definitely not when I was at Duke. In my undergrad time, I was really, really fortunate in that I had a great research mentor who's still a great friend of mine, Bob Lefkowitz, and I kind of went through undergrad sort of figuring stuff out. And at the end of college, I wasn't quite ready to move on. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to go to medical school. And Bob fortunately offered me to just kind of work in his lab and be a full-time research assistant. And I gladly took him up on it. I got to, live with my best friend from college and, go to all the Duke basketball games, which is still a lot of fun. And then I did eventually go to medical school at University of Illinois. And actually, like many of you who might actually be considering a clinical career, that's really what I thought I was going to do. I went to residency at Mass General here in Boston, and I pretty much always thought that I was going to become a medical oncologist and see a lot of patients and maybe do some clinical trial work. And then when I started residency, I got introduced to the idea of clinical informatics, and I had absolutely zero computer science background. So as I said before, I majored in biology, but I soon realized that that was going to be something that I was really interested in. And so I kind of caught up, I learned how to code, and then, starting fellowship, I did a lot of academic work, kind of combining those two things. So kind of the clinical lens of things as well as the computer science side of things. And then eventually, I was able to identify things that, I want to keep doing. And some of you might be interested in, a potential hybrid career where you still are involved in clinical work, and I still see patients every week. I'll still keep seeing patients even when my fellowship's done. And that's something I'm happy to talk about as well.
Great. It was amazing to hear about all of your experiences. So I guess we'll get to the next question, which is, what do you like best about your work? And on the flip side, what would you change? And feel free, the alumni, to answer in any order. Whoever has an answer can speak.
Okay, I can go first. So I'm going to refer back to my partnerships role at Verily. And part of the reason I'm highlighting it is many of you are probably wondering, what is a partnerships role, right? Basically, if two companies try to develop something together, so say there's one company that has strength in a certain type of technology development and another company maybe has an amazing commercial team, it makes sense for them to pair up and use their strengths together to accelerate development of a product and commercializing it. So there needs to be somebody who manages that and make sure those companies work well together, that they're aligned, they're making decisions well, all the rest. So in that role, I think what I really liked about it is the opportunity to combine strengths of two different companies and accelerate innovation and really, aim to change the healthcare system. So I think the vision behind these partnerships is fantastic. I think the challenge is that you've got two companies that may not always see eye to eye, right? And that's normal, right? You think about companies, they may be in different market spaces, they may have pressures, these type of things. And you have to ensure that people align on a strategy and get along together. So what I would say is it's challenging, but it can be very rewarding. And some of the most important skill sets to do that is being able to communicate and collaborate and empathize with what that other person is going through.
Great. And this is Tammeka Evans. And I would also just add specific to my role, I really enjoy focusing on one disease condition and really being able to kind of target activities and research to trying to address the long-standing pandemic of HIV. One of the things that would really change, I think, is very similar to what Carolyn was saying, is the ability, I think, for collaboration across industry with federal government and also some other sectors as well. I think each sector kind of plays in its own lane, and there's not a lot of cross communication. And coming from the public health side into industry, which is novel within itself, I think has just been a real change internally within the organization. And so I've been definitely, over the last couple of years, really introducing new types of relationships and kind of partnerships that haven't been as traditional. So that's definitely one of the things that I would definitely love to see change in the future in industry.
I can go next. So one thing I really like about CVS Health and really caught my attention when I joined the company was that they're very open to people of different backgrounds. So I didn't have a healthcare background. I actually had an e-commerce background. But my company, when I spoke to the people at my job, they told me that they were very open to having someone on board who did not have a healthcare specific background, because then that helps to have different perspectives on board. But one thing that I feel like CVS could really work on is expediting their legal approval process. So how I would explain it is so there was this vendor that reached out to me once, and they were launching this they launched this chatbot, and they were offering it for free to healthcare organizations during the COVID time. So it was a COVID specific chatbot. So companies could integrate it onto their websites, and people who came onto on those websites would meet with this AI chatbot, and then they could ask this chatbot all kinds of questions about COVID, and then it would source the right answers from NIH, CDC, etc., and give them the right answer, because more often than not, people go on Google and try to find these answers, and they sometimes get the right answer, sometimes they don't. So this was trying to help solve that problem, and they reached out to me. I spoke about this to my manager, and she said that she would have to talk to the director, but then she found out that it would take about 3 months at least to get that chatbot approved. And I pitched this in, I think, in April. So we just thought that by the time this would get approved, probably COVID would become old by then, or it just wouldn't make sense to have it. So we kind of had to scrap the idea, because the whole process of approving anything from the legal department, it takes a lot of time. So that kind of, I just wished at that point of time if things could have been faster, because considering this was something that we were just getting used to, we had to get used to it so quickly, right? So I was just expecting that maybe other processes would also follow suit, but apparently they did not. So this was something that I felt like could probably change.
Yeah, I'm happy to go next. I do a bunch of different things, and honestly, I really like all of them. I like the fact that I kind of am able to mix up my day and mix up my week. If I could change one thing, honestly, I don't really know. Not because there aren't parts of the work that I do that aren't monotonous or boring. That's definitely true. I think that goes with every job, though. There's going to be a small percentage of stuff that is just kind of annoying. And the advice I would give you all is, if you find that you actually have some satisfaction from doing those really monotonous, nitty gritty sort of things, you're probably onto something really good and something that's a good fit for you. I remember when I worked as a lab scientist, a lot of the monotonous busy work there, I was like, man, this is really terrible. I just don't enjoy making gels and doing this sort of stuff. But then when I became a clinician, and now the work that I do, you get really nitty gritty stuff, that filling out paperwork and stuff like that. But if you find that doing that isn't a 2 out of 10, it's a 6 or 7 out of 10, that's a good sign. So I think there's things that everyone would want to change, but I think all of us would probably say that by and large, even the quote bad parts about a job still are really good.
Yeah, I'll jump in and I can echo that very well. So one of the things I really enjoy about my position as a data scientist on a semi-customer facing team is that I get a lot of analytical questions from customers when they have a question that doesn't fit into some off-the-shelf solution that we've built. And so a lot of them are relatively simple conceptually, but you still have to go and work with the data and write something from scratch and come up with it. But you learn how customers are using your data or have what the questions they have, and we can use that insights to build better products. And then also, it's just nice to have like a 1 or 2 day type thing sometimes where it's very clearly defined that they would like to get this answer, and you wake up and you can just start working on it. But then at the same time, I have flexibility where probably 50-50 is doing that, and then working on more long-term data science projects where it's more like grad school, where it's research and open-ended, self-directed, trying to develop new things, and high risk of failure, but high risk of reward if it does work out. So it's nice to alternate between the two and have each, so that if you're stuck in research, you can just knock out some tickets, or if you're getting burned down on the tickets, you can ask your teammates to maybe take one while you spend the afternoon working on a more fun project. But so that's definitely a positive of my position right now. And I guess just if I had to pick a negative, it would be sometimes, depending on what cycle it is in the quarter, we are a startup. And so when I joined this team, I was the only data scientist answering customer requests. And there was days when I got many, or weeks I got many. But now that the team is growing and we're kind of figuring out our processes, are just spilling out. So it's looking up and good.
That's great. Many different experiences between you guys. So we can move to the next question. Do you think completing a graduate degree was advantageous to get your position, and why? And anyone can speak up.
I guess I can go again. So for data scientists in healthcare, I don't think a graduate degree is necessarily required, although many people do have masters or doctorates. Unless you have like interned somewhere and have a couple of years experience working as an analyst or a data scientist, I do think it's very helpful. It opened a lot of doors for me, even though I was changing fields, because they knew that I could speak to my research process in my PhD and show them examples of how I could translate my statistical and machine learning skills and programming skills over. So that was a really good signal, I think, unless you have plenty of years of experience. So that's just in like the normal job process.
So I would say, I think my graduate degrees from Duke were very helpful in my career, but for what I'm doing now, you do not need them. And what I always think about, when people ask me, oh, should I go to graduate school, what have you, with the exception of, I would say, medicine or law, where you need the degree to practice, right? A lot of these other areas, you may or may not need it. Think about if it's going to be helpful for you. So for example, I said that my degrees are very helpful. It helped launch my career because when I was at school, I gained helpful depth on the technology side that enables me to work well with engineers. I didn't have an engineering degree before then. And on the business side, I learned how to build a business case. And I'm looking right now to go start something or join an early team. Those skills are very helpful. They also helped me as a product manager be successful. So I think, whenever I think about grad school is what are you going to make of it for yourself? And how will that help you be more successful in your career rather than do I need to check this box to do the next thing? But that's just my perspective on that.
Hi, and this is Tammeka Evans. I would just echo that. I am a strong believer of getting experience, and whatever that experience is after undergrad, to really try to understand the fields that you may be interested in. And again, I echo, if it's a professional, you do internships, you shadow sometimes in high school and undergrad before you do professional schools. But I think this kind of career is no different. And a lot of these companies offer co-ops and internships, fully paid for many of them, to allow you time to kind of see. And then one of the benefits too, and I think is a reality for students, especially when you get into graduate and professional school, is the cost. And one of the things that I think is great when you actually start working for a company and you have an idea of how you can optimize that degree and what you're doing, is that companies pay for these in terms of tuition reimbursement programs that are aligned to the careers as well. So I have plenty of friends, even my current endeavor in the doctorate program is being supported by my company. And I would just encourage for those who are going into life sciences and similar industries is to, work experience and to kind of get a feel for what you want to do, and then try to optimize, being a part of a company as part of the benefits to financing those graduate and/or professional degrees in some cases as well.
Yeah, I would echo everything everyone said, and I would definitely agree with what kind of Carolyn had mentioned earlier. And I know some of you might be considering a question of like going to medical school or not. So I'll give you all the same advice I give people when they ask me. If your goal after medical school is not to practice, you kind of have your answer. You shouldn't go. It's 4 years and a lot of money. That you want to make sure that, like, if you're doing, like, let's say, for example, you want to go into healthcare investment banking, you do not need an MD to do that. I've talked with healthcare investment bankers who know so much about the various places they're investing in, and they never spent a day in medical school. And I think it's often, you guys all are Duke students, so you're clearly like very smart and highly motivated. And often the more challenging decision for you guys is like to not go to school and not get the degree and kind of take that leap of faith and go and get kind of real world experience, which as the other people on the panel have highlighted is often like much more valuable, but you don't get that certificate at the end. But that's totally fine because ultimately you really learn just as much, if not more, in your job than you do in school.
For me, I had no healthcare background at all before joining CVS Health. But one thing that my graduate program did prepare me for was to be ready for, industries that were outside of something that I already had exposure to. And it was largely due to the fact that I was involved in different internships, which had nothing to do with my prior experience. Our coursework involved case studies and working for real life clients that again, were outside of the industry I'd worked for before. So that sort of prepared me to think outside of the box and to like really research and find out more about this new company that I was going to work for. And that really helped me during my interviews because I was able to talk about CVS and the healthcare landscape in America. Given that I'm from India, it was very different for me. So I did my own research and I did my own research on where CVS stands in that landscape. And I was able to talk about it. And that was something that really impressed them because they did mention to me that even though I did not have any prior knowledge of healthcare, I was able to do that kind of research and actually talk about it in healthcare terms. So they really liked that. And MEM did prep me for that because it does teach you how to think. I mean, there are data courses as well. So it does teach you how to think analytically. But again, since it's engineering management, it also helps you to think from a more business perspective. And given that my role is more of a business data analyst, they want someone who has both data and business expertise. So that was something that I definitely gained at MEM. But other than that, if you are someone who wants to pursue a pharma degree, there are pharmacists on our team who have worked in the field and are now working as managers and are leading a team of analysts and data scientists and talking business all day. So by all means, there is scope for pharmacists to come into this kind of corporate world as well and, lead a team of businessmen and analysts. That's definitely something you can do even with a pharma degree.
Thank you for all of that advice. The next couple questions are kind of to shake things up, and they're going to be a little bit shorter, like a 1 to 2 word response. And for students and alumni, you guys can listen to these closely because this might be helpful for the question and answer session. So we're just going to go in the same order. So first Tanaya, Amar, Matt, Epland, Tammeka, Evans, Carolyn, Nohejl, and then Vivek, Upadhyay. So the first question is, have you ever questioned your career path? Yes or no?
Yes, initially, but not anymore. I mean, I feel like I'm in my zone now.
Yes, I did. I changed my career path in grad school.
No, I haven't.
This is Tammeka. Yes, I have. I think it keeps either being more heavily focused on sometimes the clinical, medical, sometimes on the policy within public health. So it just depends on where I feel the need and the passion, but usually it depends on the disease state as well that I'm focused on.
And for me, yes, for sure. If you can go through residency and not question it, I commend you.
The next question is, on a scale of 1 to 5, does your role offer a work-life balance?
I'd say 4. It definitely does.
Oh, sorry. 5 is strongly agree. 1 is strongly disagree.
Yeah, 4.
I'd say 4 as well for me.
I'd say 4 as well. I feel like a lot of times it's on the employee to help manage their own time within kind of the environment that the company is providing.
And I would say a 4.5, and that's just in the context of COVID as well. I'm not doing as nearly as much international travel, so that's where the 0.5 comes in.
Yeah, I would agree with everyone, like 4, 4.5. I totally agree with Carolyn. It's what you make of it. If you want, more time at home, starting a family, absolutely, you can do that. And likewise, if you're someone who is a workaholic, you can definitely do that too.
How many times have you pivoted in your career?
I'd say twice.
Just once for me.
4 for me. So when I said that I didn't question, I mean, a lot of times I'll make a change, right? And I think that's why I gave that answer earlier. There'll be more.
And 2 times for me, twice. The first time I think is the most different. I was very involved in my diversity inclusion efforts at my former company and thought about switching, but it was very human resources kind of dominated and focused. And at the time, I didn't have the intense interest in going kind of in that field, but I still stay heavily involved in diversity and inclusivity, even in my current role in my new company.
Pivoted definitely at least once. And again, I'm very glad I did.
So the next question is a 1-word fill in the blank. So blank is a skill you use almost every day.
SQL, structured query language, that's something we use every day.
I'd say SQL, but to give a different answer, time and like project management.
I'd say communication.
I would say time management.
I would say humility.
So similarly, this is the same kind of idea. Give me 1 word to fill in the blank. Blank is a skill you've learned since graduation.
I'd say product management and development.
SQL for me.
I'd say the same as Tanaya, product development, because that's something you really have to do on the job, hard to learn in school.
And I would say effective networking with the kind of emphasis on effective.
Oh man, that was going to be mine. Can I say humility again? Persistence for sure.
Yeah, those are all great skills to learn. I'm hoping Duke will kind of teach us a little bit before we leave. And then the last short question is, what single action can someone attending this panel do in order to prepare for a career in your field?
definitely brush up on your data skills because that's something they're looking for, and it's getting data heavy every day.
Go to a hackathon, ideally like a data hackathon.
I completely agree. You guys have heard me talk about like communication, right, on the softer side, but I'm going to say learn some basic software engineering skills, because if you're entering, say, digital health, that's going to be helpful no matter what.
And I would say just increase your basic knowledge of healthcare systems in general, you know, just not only domestic, but global as well. That would be really critical, I think.
These are all great tips, by the way. I hope you guys are writing these down. I wish someone did this with me. I would say networking, and I'm happy likewise to talk with anyone after, but just, you know, learn how to talk with people.
Okay, the next question is just normal length. What is the hiring process like at your company, and how can applicants prepare effectively? And you guys can go in any order that you choose.
So I can't speak on behalf of Verily, you know, I'm no longer an employee there and what have you, but what I can say broadly in digital health, what I would say is the space is young and it requires a lot of different skill sets to be successful. So what I would say, a lot of people ask me like, how do I get into digital health? What is that? You know, how do I leverage my background? What I would say is, you know, focus on what you're good at. And I know that sounds like really basic advice, but if you're coming out of school with a CS degree or electrical engineering or mechanical engineering or something else, doesn't matter what it is, you know, that is what you're bringing to the table or your work experience. And we'll hire, say, a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer who's from a different industry, but they bring that hard skill. And then they can learn the other pieces when they get there. I just think about what you're bringing to the table and look for a role that needs that. And then you'll figure out the rest once you get in.
Carolyn, I just put a plug in the chat for an amazing resource that you recently created for those on the call who are interested in digital health.
Oh, thanks, Jen. Yeah, I developed a site. Basically, I rallied my friends and colleagues from digital health, and we all share our career advice, you know, from the questions that we frequently receive and videos on the site. We're doing webinars through the fall, so you guys are welcome to join us.
And this is Tammeka. I was just going to also add, I think I mentioned it earlier, we have some great internship programs like post-fellowship co-ops that are all paid. And I think these are really, really great because they do allow you opportunities to kind of explore different parts and different sectors of the company. And I believe also just getting, again, that networking, several of us have mentioned, is so key in being able to kind of establish some of those relationships early on. And then the second piece that I wasn't so much aware of is that a lot of these larger organizations contract. And so you might want to look at some of the entities. For instance, there is Cineo Health that we work with that's a kind of healthcare focused company. So you may not be what they call like a permanent employee, but it's contract work, anywhere from a year or less, or some multiple years of contracting with the company. And it allows you to work directly with employees of the company and have that visibility. And then lastly, for like a pharmaceutical company, we work very closely with clinical research organizations. And so that's another, you know, pathway to really get some experience in kind of doing the work and getting familiar with the work with several of those clinical research organizations as well. So there's definitely a big kind of affiliate network, and just there's many ways. And so those are some of the recommendations I would say, in addition to just kind of going on the website under careers and, you know, putting in an application.
So at CVS Health, you can come and for internship programs, or there's rotational programs as well. In fact, we have someone on our team right now who's going to be working with us for 6 months and then move on to another role. It could be front store, it could be, I think they just moved in from the Aetna, which is the insurance department of CVS Health. So they moved in from that role. So it's a good role where you get, you know, an exposure to all different kinds of work that CVS does. And other than that, if you're looking for full-time roles, then definitely try and reach out to someone who's already working in the company. There are a bunch of Duke alumni who are working at CVS Health, and they're more than ready to help you and refer you. So do reach out to them, let them know why you're interested in the role, you know, why you think you would be great for the role. And especially if they have any opening on the team and if they posted about it, then do reach out to them. Like Tammeka mentioned, we also have a lot of contract roles open at the company. So there's a bunch of different contracting agencies that we work with. And the good thing about these contracting agencies is that for international students especially, they also sponsor their H-1B visas. So it's a great way to get your foot in the door and, you know, also get sponsorship if you're an international student.
Yeah, so definitely internships and networking are great ways to get started. At Komodo, being a startup, we only have like 2 internships, so maybe not the most lucrative application route, but in terms of the actual interview process, I think for a data scientist, we have like a free phone screen on just validating that you're a technical person, as you claim you are on your resume. And then if you pass that, we bring you what used to be an on-site. Now it's obviously a Zoom site, I guess, for a couple of different facets and things to prepare. I guess you don't have to, it's not like computer science going into Google or something where you have to memorize different algorithms and whatnot, but be expected to be asked like some general coding questions just to, you know, see your thought process, and kind of like FizzBuzz, if you've ever heard of that, not like exactly FizzBuzz, but in that style. And then be prepared to talk, even if you're not of a healthcare background, be prepared to talk about like problems in the healthcare space. So try and read some example case studies or problems, because you'll be provided basically like with zero knowledge enough to like start solving the problem, just to see how you would take it and what steps you would go through if you'd catch any errors like that. So the more exposure and practice, it's a hard thing to practice, obviously. There's no just list of sample problems out there really, as far as I know, but they want to see how you can think on your feet and adjust. So
yeah, I would totally agree with everything people said. And you know, sometimes it's not even finding case studies, but just like read generally about healthcare. You know, even in stuff like the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, you'd be amazed how much you can learn just by following current events.
Great. I know we're running a little short on time, so I'll just ask this question as our last question. What is the employment outlook for this field given the COVID crisis?
I can start. Again, representing digital health here, it's hot. There's a lot of money going into digital health right now. So investors are investing. I mean, there's obvious reasons like telehealth, right? You know, that's really relevant right now, and a bunch of other elements of digital health. So there are jobs. It's a place I would look if you're interested in doing something, you know, non-clinical out the door when you're graduating or your internships. There's a lot of exciting opportunities there.
in data science, in health, data science is kind of similar. I think the jobs might have been paused a little bit as people were seeing how things changed, but resumed hiring at the same rate or slightly above. But at least for data scientists, there seems to be like a surplus of candidates coming from other industries trying to switch over. So I think the like job to applicant ratio has gone down, even though the jobs have stayed consistent.
In my team specifically, there's a hiring freeze, but CVS is really huge and there's so many departments. So I'm sure there's hiring going on. In fact, I heard a friend of mine who got hired recently when COVID was at its peak. So definitely look into it. And I would also recommend looking into any roles that Aetna might have. Aetna is still sort of, they present themselves as a separate company, but they're still a part of CVS Health. And they've recently been acquired. So there's definitely going to be requirements for different kinds of roles on the team. So can look there, and also, like I mentioned, the contract roles are a good place to look at as well, because they're constantly hiring. So can look at those kinds of roles as well.
Okay, and at my company, too, I just say, as you all can imagine, with the pharmaceutical companies and industries, we have a vaccines development division that's very big, and even in my division with HIV as a retrovirus and some of the parallels to the current pandemic, I've been extremely busy. And again, I just could not emphasize enough just the importance of all these life sciences and global health, and how close, you know, our borders are with each other, with all the technology we have to be in one place within 24 hours across the world. So it is a very viable and optimal time for opportunities with my company and in the industry in general.
Yeah, I would totally agree with everyone. There is a really big silver lining with COVID across all of healthcare, be it healthcare delivery, therapeutics, digital health, everything. And so there is a lot of disruption right now, but that also means there's a lot of opportunity.
Great advice. With that being said, those are all the questions that I have for you guys. But if there are any questions from the audience, you can write them in the chat and I can read them out, or you can raise your hand and I can see. Natalie Wong, you have your hand raised. I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and then ask a question.
Yeah, hi. First, I just want to say thank you guys all so much. I think everyone on this call can agree this was super informative. I was just wondering if you guys could kind of describe what a typical day in your life looked like. What are your roles? What do you do? And all of that. Thank you so much.
So I can start. For going back to my alliance management job, you know, a role like that, what are the type of things you do? So it may be anything from engineering teams need to align on a decision and they might be disagreeing at that point. And so you work with both sides to understand, you know, where can we kind of align on that. So somebody's just working with people to ensure alignment. It could be that we're having a big, you know, JP Morgan conference is coming up, big healthcare conference. Our CEOs are going to be speaking at that meeting. What are we teeing up for them in terms of the future of our work together across two different companies? Everything to that, to like throwing a happy hour for the team when we've like accomplished something big, and making sure that, you know, we're all working together. So there's a softer side, there's the product development side, or it could be renegotiating a contract. And renegotiating contracts is not necessarily bad. Sometimes it's a new idea and you say, hey, we need to, you know, change our development plan to address it. So it's very diverse.
Yeah, I guess a typical day for me kind of depends on the week, because we've, since the pandemic, kind of organized Wednesdays to be less meetings and Friday afternoons as well. But I usually have like 1 or 2 hours of meetings with different teams to talk about any changes to the data products that we rely on as data scientists from other parts of the company, or upcoming deliverables for clients that need to be prioritized and that sort of thing. Then I spend probably the rest of my time as kind of more of an individual contributor, coding, talking with just a small group of fellow data scientists to get advice and code reviews on things. And then sometimes spent on professional development, like we have data scientist academies within the company where people present their interesting work, or working on what we're going to ask in interviews and running interviews. I did 2 today. So all different things throughout the week.
Yeah, it's really diverse at CVS as well. Not every day is the same. We do a lot of testing on our team, and it really depends upon what phase of the testing our product or service is at. So sometimes the team will get together and brainstorm different ideas that we could potentially go after. Other times will be spent on you know, trying to figure out the sizing of our patients, like how many patients can we target through this test, and if it's feasible or not. And that's kind of like a more SQL heavy task. And then once you zero in down on one test, then actually coming up with it's called an opportunity opportunity identification code that we come up with that identifies these patients and then actually targets them with our campaigns. It could be an SMS campaign or a call. And then the other stages could be actually first UATing those messages or services that we're planning to launch. Other times we're actually in the process of launching them. So launching and monitoring and things like that. Then the last stage is measurement. So we bring all of that together and we actually measure, see how the test versus control groups performed, things like that. So it really depends upon what stage of the test you're at, and that really decides your day here.
And I would say for me, I'm doing a comparison pre-COVID and our current situation, but a lot of travel. So like the beginning of a week, I may be flying out, let's say to Jamaica, to talk with their Minister of Health and some physicians about trying to implement some innovation in HIV testing in their emergency room departments across, the country. Or I could be presenting at a conference in, any given country or, city for the week and doing a lot of networking there. And then I've also, as a director, I manage teams that do research as well. So a lot of times I may be going in with some of my team members to see how some of their research is progressing in some of the teams that they have. And then it could be something relatively local, working with right in South Carolina, south of us, with the Department of Health, Environmental Control, and trying to launch programs across their state in HIV prevention and treatment optimization in terms of adherence and retention and care, and some strategies that they're doing and how we can support and collaborate with them. So extremely diverse, which I absolutely love, and just working across the globe and again, I just can't emphasize the kind of global health piece and various healthcare settings with different variations in resources. And just, I think a colleague said, a humility of just really appreciating that there are individuals who really want to try to make a difference in this world, and with the variation of those resources. And so it's been very rewarding for me in terms of being in this position to be able to really day-to-day see. So with all of that, now COVID, I'm doing it all virtually. And so a lot of video conferences, a lot of video connections, and trying to, make some of those same connections and innovations in preventive and treatment areas as well. So that's for me.
Yeah, I mean, pretty similar to everyone else, right? We're all on Zoom calls now, day in, day out. But the work that we do is generally very project oriented. So depending on where we are, it can be like pretty relaxed or like pretty crazy.
Great. I don't see any other hands raised or anything in the chat. Actually, okay, never mind. There's something in the chat. What specific software engineering skills are required for applying to digital healthcare companies? And this is from Vivek.
Well, I will chime in here, though I hope maybe Matt, you can chime in after, is someone else closer to the software data side of things. What I would say, at least from my view, number one, like basic skills that you would need elsewhere. I mean, you need to build apps. You need to be able to develop technologies that consumers can use, right? Kind of those typical elements apply on the consumer side and on the healthcare side. I think there's a huge focus on data. And in the healthcare space, I mean, this is additional depth, but things like claims data, EMR, electronic medical record data, that may be something I don't know if you guys can learn about that in school. If you can't, that's okay. I mean, you're going to learn about it after. So there's certain areas that are more specific to healthcare, but I think my instinct is like, your typical software domains, firmware, data analytics, data science, machine learning, all of that is leveraged in digital health. Matt, I don't know if you want to add anything there.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think there's a wide variety of software engineering positions. I mean, we have front-end developers, back-end developers, data engineers, data scientists, UI, we have everything basically going on. So it really kind of depends on what interests you and where you want to specialize. But in terms of like general practices, I think good code hygiene, writing comments, working with Git and like a workflow where you're making branches and commits. If you can work on like some kind of open source project and show that you're a valued developer there, that'd be great. Or working on a project on your own. Ideally, like if you're deciding to change fields like I did out of physics into data science in healthcare, I did some projects on my own time that were just unrelated to physics to show that I could transition my skills, and then also everything wasn't confidential research, so I could actually post the full source code and stuff. So I think those are good general terms, but obviously if you want a particular type of engineering, you should try and ask and network around and see what others can tell you.
So I can talk in terms of tools. I think that would be helpful. So for my team specifically, we're more focused on SQL and advanced Excel. But there's other teams, for example, the enterprise analytics teams that have data scientists who work with Python and R. So those are good skills to learn. And also Tableau is a big one that other teams use regularly. So learning these tools would be really helpful.
Great advice. I think that was the last question, and we're right about to come up on time. So I just want to thank the alumni for being here tonight. It was super informative. As someone who did not think about any of these careers before, super interesting. I enjoyed listening. And yeah, we're done.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you so
Certainly.
much.
Thank you. Good luck to everyone.